Eagles minicamp is right around the corner, and there's definitely some things to discuss regarding John Ross, why he came back to the NFL, why he's turning heads right now, and kind of giving a little bit of attention right now during just OTAs. I want to get into some of the information on that, and we're going to be going over one of the most underrated defensive linemen we have on this team that is due to be a free agent after this year, Milton Williams, and we're going to get into all that. So let's get straight into it.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
Yo, what is going on, guys? I hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. So I'm going to go over some news for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, a lot to discuss regarding John Ross. Okay, wanted to go a little bit into detail on some more things where John Ross has had a pretty good OTAs. Obviously, Devontae Parker retired. They had to sign somebody else. It didn't even have to be another wide receiver, but obviously losing Devontae Parker was another guy on the outside, a veteran player at 31 years old. Literally, the Patriots paid off most of what they paid off most of his salary just to get rid of him, and the Eagles really only paid him $1.2 million. So he retired. They signed John Ross, and OTAs, he's been getting a lot of attention. He's been getting consistent separation. Even seeing him in some of the, drills on his own, he has really shown that he still got speed at 27, 28 years old. Okay. Now I want to get into obviously some of the information regarding why he came back and why retiring was a big mistake, because we know he was with the Bengals, obviously 9th overall pick with the Bengals. Goes to the Giants, goes to Kansas City. So he's been to a few teams and not living up to what he was supposed to be. And we don't know what was going on behind the scenes in his life outside of football. So had his press conference a few days ago, and said some things about it. So John Ross says, "I never wanted to leave football." During a Thursday news press conference, "I think I was just at a point in my life where I had a lot going on. Literally, the day I retired, I knew it was a big mistake. But I think when you go through so much in life and you can only control so much, you get to a place mentally and physically. For what I've been dealing with and what I've dealt with, it was tough. But in my heart, I know who I am. I immediately started to coach like I coached my son, so I was always in it. I knew it was a mistake. Where I am now, I feel like I'm in a much better place mentally, physically, and even spiritually. Actually thankful it happened." Okay. Now, I think this is really important because you never know what players could turn into. And trust me, being the 9th overall pick in 2017, just imagine being a draft pick, running that 4.22 speed that was obviously broken this past draft in the 40-yard dash, getting all the attention. I mean, he looked like a human, even with the Bengals in some plays and some big plays that he's had there. He looked like a human joystick in Madden as like the fastest receiver. Michael Vick as a wide receiver in Madden. That's what he pretty much looked like on the field. But between injuries and just not living up to expectation, going to a couple teams, I would have to say you'd probably hate football by that point. There's some guys that take it as a challenge if they don't stay with the first team they are with as a first round pick, and sometimes it blows your confidence. Now, we don't know what was going on behind the scenes. He obviously was dealing with things outside of football, and from what he said, other stuff during his press conference is that his son really inspired him to get back into football. Says he has coached his son's team, and I guess his son was the big factor into him coming back, that it was a big mistake to retire. Probably retired off of really, light stuff that happened, and maybe just mentally just brought him down. But to see him in Eagles camp and not hyping him up, not saying that he's going to be anything special or anything like that, but you never know. Okay, OTAs, the pads aren't on. We're not in full pads. We're not physically doing much of anything. Okay, we're not hitting each other. We're not, I want to see what these practices look like, so hopefully that changes. But I want to say is that there could be a good chance he might make this team. Now, I don't think he'll be the starting wide receiver 3. We'll see how it goes. And obviously, guys have to stay healthy, okay, throughout this process, because once, injuries happen, and then the Eagles have to make some other decisions. Hopefully at wide receiver, we do stay healthy there, because John Ross will probably get some playing time. Obviously, waiting for Anais Smith to obviously be a full go for minicamp. Hopefully in a few days he'll be good. Johnny Wilson will get a shot, so we'll see what he could do. Paris Campbell and the rest of them guys. But John Ross, was really showing a lot at OTAs that he does have the speed. Maybe he won't be the starting wide receiver 3. Maybe he will be Kellen Moore will use John Ross if he makes this roster as a gadget type receiver, third down gadget receiver for, in motion, pre-motion type plays and kind of take advantage of his speed. Kind of what the Kansas City Chiefs do with a lot of guys. So they use a lot of these wide receivers in the backfield. They use them on pre-snap motion to give them the ball and have that speed in open field. So with blockers in front, so they could do a whole bunch of things with John Ross. And I'm pretty excited for it, honestly. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to hype him up or anything, but I mean, if the athletic ability is there, that's great. Even when there were plays not going his way offensively, he was getting constant separation, consistent separation during OTAs, and that's a great thing. Once the pads go on, it changes the game. Then we have joint practices with the Patriots. We'll have our few preseason games, and we'll see if he has enough to make the roster. If he's trying to revive his career or kind of venge himself back into the league, and really show that he could still play and he's not written off yet. And it's, his son is a big motivator, then that's great. That's all I want for the guy to be successful. Because when we got John Ross, even for the tryouts, I was kind of surprised, to be honest. I didn't know if they were going to go after another receiver after Devontae Parker retired. I figured they'd go after another position. They'd sign somebody else. I don't know. But it looks like they want as much speed on this offense as possible, because there's weapons all over the place. There's no excuse for this offense going into the season. All right. With what you have on paper, the only problem we have is coaching. And hopefully they fix that situation. And, we're on a really hot start beginning of the season. Besides the first game, that's always a toss-up because it's the first game of the season and it's, in Brazil. But I'm excited. It's the John Ross situation is making me more excited by the day, and as well as so many other guys, so much competition at different positions. Wide receiver 3 is definitely one of those positions. We all know that. To finally get this wide receiver 3 position right and get it productive again. We haven't had really, wide receiver 3 hasn't really been successful since, I would say, Nelson Aguilar, an inconsistent player every single year, but obviously 17 was his best year. Then picked up his 5th-year option. He stunk the next year after that, went to the Raiders, played fantastic, then got a long-term deal with the Patriots. So up and down, way too many down years than up years for Nelson Aguilar. But really, that's the last time we had really any success at this position. And obviously, Quez Watkins couldn't really handle the big moments as a wide receiver 3. And his availability has been in question. I thought, Alamati, I can't even say his name right, Zacchaeus, I don't think, he really had too many opportunities because the coaching was just that horrible. They just didn't trust giving other guys the ball, unfortunately. So bringing enough speed like this with John Ross add to the mix, he could play special teams. He could do both special teams and, maybe, he could be a wide receiver 3 this year. Maybe he'll be a backup. Maybe he'll make the roster. It's going to be interesting to see if he actually makes this roster. But I think it's just another guy you could really look at and be pretty excited about. And I always like these stories of why guys come back to the league, or, you know what I mean? Yes, he's 28 years old. Yes, he's a lot older than when, obviously he hasn't played in a few years, but getting back into the groove of things. And players always get another chance at doing things, which is great. So that's where I'm at with it right now. Now, secondly, I want to talk about one of the most underrated defensive linemen on the Eagles right now, and that's Milton Williams, okay? Now, statistically, he's gotten better and better and better. And sometimes in recent years, the last few years, sometimes the rotation wasn't good enough, where we've seen so much flash from Milton Williams, and this is a guy, especially from my standpoint in 21, where I didn't really like the pick too much, from Mississippi State, 3rd-round pick Milton Williams. Gannon was really happy about the pick, and I didn't understand why. But he has become a pretty good player here. Now, this is a contract year. Obviously, you lost Fletcher Cox to that position, so I'm hoping some guys do step up at DT. Obviously, Jalen Carter should have a nasty perfection monster year, okay? You have Gabe Hall, undrafted free agent from Baylor that I think is going to be a nice backup nose for Jordan Davis. Obviously, Jordan Davis needs a really big year this year because after this year, you're going to your contract year, okay, on your last year of your deal. And Milton Williams could be a free agent next year. On paper right now, he's playing for the Eagles this year, and that's it. Could there be an extension in the future? We'll see, but he really has to wow me to death this year. Now, he had a down year last year. There's a lot of players that had down years last year. Milton Williams was just getting better every single year. And then last year took a nosedive because our defensive line couldn't hit home. We didn't blitz. We didn't stunt. We didn't run stunts. We didn't do anything to help. Getting a pass rush would be nice. Helped your secondary 100%. Giving up big chunk yards, whether it's the run game, screen game, short 5 to 8 yard passes that were, because corners are lined off the ball so much, and which they're going to be this year as well. But athletically and mentally, we just weren't sound in mind with making tackles. So it really affected a lot of things. And I think everyone's been dogging on this guy. I think he's going to have a really good year this year. I'm not talking he's going to have an 8, to 10 sack year, but I think disruptiveness is going to be there in the backfield with him. And I think there's a lot of praise towards this defensive line and Milton Williams. And there's going to be a lot of new pieces. Bryce Huff's a new piece. Nolan Smith really hasn't played that much and played at the end of last year, but he might be changing positions, so we'll see what happens with that. You know what I mean? Jalix Hunter, 3rd round pick, Fangio's hand-picked player that he absolutely loves. We're going to see what he does on the edge or as a off coverage guy. So, drop him back in coverage. So DT is definitely, I wouldn't say it's low in value right now when it comes to personnel. Losing Fletch was definitely a huge one for us, especially Fletcher Cox was probably one of the most promising players last year that played really good in the rotation. The top 2 players on this defensive line, I'd say that played good last year was Reddick, and obviously, Milton Williams and one other guy. So, I mean, we played, I just had a brain fart just now. So, sorry, I was figuring out names. I just got a brain fart. Yeah, I mean, Fletcher Cox was the best rotational guy we had. HaasonReddick had the numbers because of the sacks. And Jordan Davis had a pretty good, first half year and then fell off after that. So everybody fell off, you know what I mean? So DT is definitely, is going to be the next couple of years, not just this year, but next year. It's going to be interesting. So we'll see what happens with him. The rest of this defensive line, do we need to add to it? Are they going to add more players? You got to watch out too. Once the rules have changed when cutting down this roster, so it's only be one day they have to make cuts. Remember, there used to be 3 days where they can cut guys, they can cut a certain amount of guys, from 90 to 52, whatever. So they cut a bunch of guys in one day. It's going to be probably the toughest cuts we're ever going to have. Okay, but this gives us. What's the good thing about cuts is that other teams are cutting players. So there's going to be guys available that could probably step in, maybe had a good preseason, had some good preseason games, and maybe the Eagles have a lot of interest in. They could bring right in, put them in the rotation if they really have to. But I don't really look at depth charts right now, especially from OTAs, because for me, it just makes no sense. Once they get the full pads on, then we'll start to, who's in the offense, who's lined up, who's the first rotational defensive line, second, third, whatever. So we get to count as much as we can. But, just want to I don't think we talk about Milton Williams enough going into everything. So if you guys haven't checked out the Philly Shakedown podcast merch, definitely check it out. Link is in the description. We're going to have a lot more merch coming out, especially before the season starts. A huge lineup is coming. We do have youth t-shirts now. We have ladies t-shirts as well. So all sizes available up to 6XL. So definitely check that in the link below and check out the store for more support. Do appreciate it so much. If you guys like the video, please definitely subscribe to the channel for more Eagles news every single day. We'll be going over every training camp, mini camp, you name it, preseason games, reactions, the season reactions, every game of the season. Come back for more news. And if you haven't, definitely like the video. This help the channel tremendously. And let me know what you guys think about Milton Williams going to the season. And what do you guys really do think about John Ross? Is he going to underperform? Does he have the speed and no capability? Because we've seen guys with speed. Quez Watkins had speed, couldn't do nothing with it, and mentally just wasn't there and wasn't available to play at times. We've had guys like Shelton Gibson from West Virginia, the big West Virginia star, fastest guy in the country. You know, I mean, we've brought in speed like that. Guy couldn't catch a ball, guy couldn't run a route, guy couldn't do anything. You could run a vertical easily, but if you're not sound in mind with your route tree and you have, you can't catch a football, it's going to be a problem. So, I feel really good about John Ross going through the season. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think this is one of the most exciting programs, off-season programs that we're going into. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and I will respond. You guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you guys on the next one. Shakes what up, follow side. Peace out, guys. Bye.